Now, speaking of which, 2 plays based on Michael Morpurgo novels are being put online by the Barn Theatre in Cirencester. Tickets cost £13.50 and the performances can be watched on your computer at home. An Elephant in the Garden is being shown between the 2nd and the 18th of April. It's, of course, about an elephant caught up in the Second World War in Germany. And Private Peaceful is being shown between April the 19th and May the 2nd, which is all about a soldier in World War One. I'm delighted to say that Michael joined us on the programme this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. Nice to speak to you. Nice to be in Gloucestershire in this funny sort of way.
Well, yes, it's nice of you to join us as well. Once again, I must say, because this link-up with the Barn Theatre is pretty strong, isn't it? What's the kind of link there?
Well, I love the courage of the place. It's small. It's in a small town. It's a theatre that means a lot to the town. The town means a lot to the theatre. And I've just admired hugely I think it's the artistic talent that Ewan Lewis gathers around him, the fact that they get on with things and just go for it. And even in the pandemic, with it threatening, the first people to put on a play that was live, was the Barn Theatre, and they did Private Peaceful. I went to see it outside, and because there was confidence that they could eventually bring it inside, they did bring it inside. They just got on with it, and they were wonderful plays they were putting on. I've known them some time, actually, because they did a show of a book of mine called The Butterfly Lion, which was supreme about 2 years ago. And then Private Peaceful was just a wonderful, wonderful production and done in these extraordinary circumstances. So the place was full of people from Cirencester and from Gloucestershire all around who come to see live theatre for the first time for some time. Now, of course, they were shut down. And they decided that we're not going to sit there and twiddle our thumbs. We're going to get up there and do it. And so they put on the stage Private Peaceful again, live in the theatre, and filmed it, and so that people can see it even if the theatre is shut down. And then Elephant in the Garden is a new one to them, done by Alison Reed from Bristol. It's a one-woman show, if you like. And both of them are the kind of plays which make you sit up and take notice. Private Peaceful is the story of a soldier in the First World War, 2 brothers from Devon. They go to the First World War, and one of them is accused of cowardice. And it's the story, really, of the last night of a man's life, thinking about his brother. It's not easy in the sense that it's sad, but it's also desperately hopeful as well. And Elephant in the Garden is one of those extraordinary stories. I mean, Private Peaceful is based on truth. There were over 300 of our soldiers shot for cowardice or desertion in the face of the enemy. 2 of them were shot because they fell asleep, if you please, in the trenches when they were supposed to be on sentry duty. So that's a dreadful story in many, many ways, but historically true. And Elephant in the Garden is a story that I heard, funnily enough, on the radio, early, and it's a story of an elephant. This is true, in the zoo in Belfast during the Second World War. And I think the order went out from the director of the zoo during the war that if the zoo was bombed, then all the animals would have to be shot, the wild animals, because they could get out into the town. And orders were given to shoot them. And one lady said, no, I'm not going to shoot the elephant. I brought this particular elephant up virtually on the bottle because its own mother had died, and it will never harm anyone, and I'm not going to shoot it. And the zoo's director said, sort of throwaway line, well, then you can take it home and look after it at the end of every day. And that's what she did. She took it back to her house in Belfast, and she had a little walled garden at the back, and she put the elephant in there during every single night and then walked it to the zoo the next morning. And I thought, wonderful, wonderful. But then Absolutely. I thought, let's turn it a little bit around. We all know that there were bombings, terrible bombings all over England, Ireland, all sorts of places. These bombers came, and of course we were doing the same to them, and in a much more ferocious way in the end. And we all know about the bombing of Dresden, which was caused such huge casualties. And you can argue the whys and the wherefores of it. Well, what you know is that it caused great deal of suffering. And so I thought, no, let's take this from Belfast and put it in Dresden, because there is a zoo in Dresden. I did my research, and do you know what I discovered? I discovered that the same order went out to the people who worked in Dresden Zoo. We are going to have to kill all the wild animals, the lions, the tigers, the elephants, because they could get out of the town if the American bombers come, if the British bombers come. And so the same thing happened, except, of course, they didn't do it. They didn't do it, and the bombers came. And one of the records I read was of people hearing the screaming of animals in the zoo when the zoo was bombed, just along with everything else. So it's one of those stories. It sounds very grim, but it's not. It's very optimistic in many, many ways. And it is about this brave woman who rescues an elephant. And then it's a story of the migration of German people as the Russians were coming in from the east at the end of the Second World War. I think 10 million Germans got on the road and walked west in order to walk towards the Americans and the British, because they preferred, I suppose, to be, how should I say, to confront them rather than the Russians going the other way. So that's the story of the two plays that are coming up there. And I know they're going to be good, and I just hope lots and lots of people in Gloucestershire, and indeed all around the world, watch them.
Well, I'm sure they will. How do you feel about your works being used to basically help, in some cases, save theatres in these difficult times?
Well, it's a lovely thing to be part of a group of people who are, I mean, these are extraordinarily dedicated people anyway, theatre people and musicians, all these people who were instantly, I mean, the click of a finger a year ago, and they had no job. And there weren't big companies, they couldn't get lots of furloughing. They just had nothing. And of course, what actors normally do and musicians normally do, if there is no show or they aren't asked to do a show, is they go and work in cafes and they go and work in restaurants and they do gardening. They're very good at that sort of thing. They know perfectly well there are going to be gaps in the work. But there were no jobs. So these people were literally cut off from their work and their world about them. And it was desperate. And they were longing to get going. And it's lovely to be part of the recovery, because what we're in now is the recovery. It may be a long recovery, but we're in the recovery now. And what you know is there are literally tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people connected to theatre with all aspects of theatre, the technical side, the on-stage side, the musicians, the orchestras, they're all screaming to get out there and perform. That is what their life is. And, of course, us, the other side, the audiences, we would really love to go to theatres, to cinemas, to concert halls. We just want to get up and get going and do that part of our life. You know, this stimulation, really, of our intellectual curiosity and our emotional depth. Theatre is wonderful at touching that. And so it's just glorious to be part of a theatre which has this energy and determination to get out there and get going. And I think it's just wonderful. This is not having in some big, grand theatre. You know, I've had productions on in those theatres, and it's lovely, and it's great, and they travel worldwide, and it's a big deal. This is not. This is what actually this country is fantastic at, which is local theatre with local support, full of talent, full of energy. And to be 77 years old and be part of this kind of a crusade of getting going again in the theatre is marvellous. And it makes me feel that the books that I wrote many, many years ago, all four of these really, The Butterfly Lion, The Elephant in the Garden, Private Peaceful, it's a wonderful connection I have. I feel that I'm sort of holding hands with them in an artistic sense. So
well, it's working. That's a dead set. It's working. Michael, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some time this morning. Let's hope it's really successful. I'm sure it will be. I know there are educational packs available to the schools as well, so they can get involved with this as well. And thank you so much for joining us and spreading the word for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you ever so much.